Trevor Haas.
Thank you, Brad. Yeah, so right off, I would support both as a taxpayer and as councillor, the new build. I think that's the best route to go. Personally, I'd like to have the discussion because I'm worried about putting it in the same footprint, how long we're going to be without the rec center and that recreation. So I'd like to have a conversation of where a new build might go, leaving the rec center still functionable, and then it also leaves potential for that building for other means, from user groups of pickleball or increased daycare space, because we've got quite a lot of daycare wait times. So there's lots of things, moving parts to look at. I realize the 10 years, of course, is a recommendation, and I mean, in municipal government, we realize in any level of government, and things don't happen as quickly as we'd like to see, but I do want to see, working with administration and council, to how can we plan for a shorter period to where we can be building a new center. Of course, after the plebiscite, I am excited to see what the results are, to give some of our marching orders, and then going to work at what that'll look like, which will open up for grants and sponsorships and everything else that everybody's wondering, are we going to be going for that? So that's my preference, and it'll also bring potentially people to our community, because that's what families are looking for when they come to our community. What amenities do we have here? So thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. Mike Story.
Well, from the Chamber of Commerce luncheon I was at last week, when I saw the resolution that was put forth by council on September the 2nd, from my experience in municipal government, it raised probably 20 or 30 more questions in my mind that weren't never answered. And I think that council should have had some public meetings in this regards to this topic. I did the calculations, and that means a 27% increase in taxes for 10 years for a facility that may or may not ever be built. The impact on low-income families and fixed-income families is unacceptable to me. I would like to see the engineering study, the last one done in 2017, I believe it was, because I'd like to see if it can be a staged project and done over so many years. And certainly, you want to have your federal, provincial, and other local government grant funding in place even before you consider trying to build such a facility. So I'm on the fence as far as any of the three. I think the fourth option should have been none. So, thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Mike. Kristen Chambers.
Thank you. Well, I think it's there's definitely a reason that it was a plebiscite and not a referendum. I really feel like this plebiscite that went forward is not that these are the only three options that we have, but I see it as a bit of a heat test. So how are people really feeling? I mean, the reality is none of the options are great. They're all expensive. All of the timelines are bad, and I think we were fully aware of that. I won't be saying what my opinion is. I made that opinion and I made that vote based on my family and my family's situation, and I encourage all of you to do exactly the same. My job is to listen to what the rest of the community says. And that one vote is my private vote. And I think as we go through, we really need to take the time to look at what, again, back to that heat test, what can the community tolerate? And based on the tolerance of the community, that's going to dictate the tax increases, the amount of money that we can spend, the amount of money that we can get, and that will dictate the timelines and all of those things. So while a lot more details would have been nice, of course, I think the reality is we don't have the money to start talking about the details. We need the money, we need the plan, we need to understand the risk and the financial responsibility that the community is willing to pony up for, and at that point, then we can start to get into the details, apply for grants, do all of the different things, and I think that that's the most important thing, is just understanding, what is that tolerance that we have as a community, and then building out the plan once we've decided that.
Thanks, Kristen. And last on this question, Donald McLean.
Thank you. I will be voting yes for option 3, brand new. And the reason why is what kind of community do we want? What kind of community do we need to draw professionals, draw doctors, young families, and engineers for the pulp mill, right? We're out there trying to recruit people, and we don't have the facilities for them to make that option or that decision to come here, right? We need things in this community that we can go out and be proud of so that we can recruit young individuals to come here. And not only that, I have daughters that I send away to get a second, get further their education, and I want them to come back. I want them to move back here so they can raise their families, right? But if we have nothing to offer them, right, if we keep going around in a circle and not doing anything, then unfortunately, that's where we're going to be, right? So if we want to go out there and we want to recruit, we want to grow this community, we want to move this community forward, then I hope that we would vote yes on option 3, right? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Don. Okay, question 1, done. I will now open it up to 2 questions from the floor. There we go. I see somebody at the mic. I'll have everyone introduce themselves. Just your name and question. Go ahead.
Hi everybody, I'm Nancy Robbins with Community Futures West Shallowhead. Just wondering if you're elected to council, what goals you would like to accomplish with economic development and business support over the next 4 years.
Thank you, Nancy. First to answer, not surprisingly, Kristen Chambers.
Well, I get the tough ones. Thank you, Nancy. I think that's an excellent question. I do believe that economic development has been lacking in the town of Hinton over the last while. I think that being a bit of a younger community in the region, that we certainly have some opportunities to look back on historically some of the things that have come up, but we really need to move ahead and look at what do we want to cultivate outside of our natural resources, what do we want to cultivate in terms of tourism, in different objectives of youth, etc. So I think that really working with administration to come up with what does economic development look like in our town, back to my earlier comment about strategic planning and making sure we have the right people in the right places asking the right questions and really putting our community out there as a place that people want to come and do business and have businesses, and what those advantages are is a really key point going forward.
Thank you, Kristen. Next up, Mike Story.
Thanks, Brad. To me, economic development means having sound policies in council that create incentives. Most economic development, about 90%, actually comes from within the community itself. So if you've got policies that reflect council's wishes to try to get the housing started and the small businesses started, you know, that can be done in several ways through sound policies of council.
Thanks, Mike. Gail Dunn.
Thanks, Brad. I believe economic development means creating an environment where development is supported, where we have new businesses, new jobs, and more opportunity things for residents to do. But I think it all ties back to what we were already talking about with the rec center, is having a new rec center to bring new people in, which in turn will create new jobs, which in turn will create new businesses, and talking about a little bit about the housing shortage, same thing. When people are looking to come to Hinton, they're looking for places to live. I think it's just all-encompassing with everything. It all goes back to that economic development and bringing people to Hinton.
Thanks, Gail. Trevor Haas.
Thank you, Brad. Thanks, Nancy. I think the biggest thing for me, I mean, economic development always is an important part of a small community, being able to support, but there is those foundational things that need to happen, need to be focused on, housing being a number one. Unfortunately, you know, we can bring new businesses in, but if we don't have places for their employees to live, or they don't have places for themselves to live, it makes it much more challenging. So I think that this is a really important part of the strategic planning moving forward. You know, council sitting down with administration, working on what level of support, you know, do we want to give economic development, And then, of course, where are we headed with our housing, recreation? You know, we've got some good things happening, I believe, in the housing area, but, you know, we need to really focus on that in order to improve our economic development situation in our community. I think also, you know, supporting organizations like Community Futures and things like that. I know in the last budget that didn't happen. I'd like to see that change this year. I'd like to see if we could support that at a greater deal. And because a great organization always works very hard at economic development in our community and continues to support the DMO as well. DMO has been very successful and supporting them and being an advocate for that as well, I think will affect our economic development. Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. Dooley, Nelson.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for the question, Nancy. First off, I would love to reinstate the partnership that the town of Hinton has had forever with Community Futures. I've seen firsthand the impact that an organization like Community Futures or the Chamber of Commerce have and how far their networks go. In many cases, go a lot further than us as council or administration. I think one big thing that has to happen is council needs to take some ownership in getting people excited about investing in this community. To filter everything through administration and a long-term plan, sometimes it's, you know, getting out and talking to a realtor, talking to a developer, talking to a doctor, you know, getting people excited about our community. When we decided to open a business here, it was a conversation with Tracy Shepard, who got us super excited to move here and what this place would be like. Those sorts of things need to happen, and those things don't cost money. They don't need long-term strategies through administration. And I also would love to see some of these working groups again. So around housing, which is a big part of any sort of economic development right now, as it's a major challenge for everybody relocating here. But when I was first on council, we had Hinton and Region Economic Development Coalition, we had Hinton First, we had HEAT, we had all these, you know, volunteers that came from all different sectors that just wanted to invigorate Hinton. And I think that's a big first step. Along with that, we need to make sure that our policies are in place, we're reducing our red tape, but really making it a little bit easier and a little bit more exciting to invest in Hinton.
Thanks, Dooley. William McDonald.
I duly answered every question. But, you know, we no longer have an economic development officer here in Hinton. We need to be focusing administration to be working with Community Futures, okay, right, the chamber and the business community. Working together creates new business opportunities and jobs. Cutting funding to groups like Community Futures is not the solution. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Brian Magoon.
Thanks, Brad. This is one where I think it's really about tone from the top. And remembering that council and the will of council is about what does the majority of 7 people say. This is an area, I'll be quite frank, I've been upset with in the last 4 years. What I've seen is disrespect, personally, in council meetings, uttered towards members of our business and development community. A lack of respect and unwillingness to become partners. That doesn't mean giving in to whatever businesses want, but it means developing a cordial relationship because we're all neighbors in a small town of 10,000. That's the first thing. I haven't seen that in the last 4 years, and the will of council as a whole hasn't supported that. And I think that's a miss. For myself, why haven't we actively been pursuing incentivization from a targeted process with those strategic priorities? How come we as a community haven't sent out councillors and administrators to large developers in other communities in areas like housing, trying to bring in those structural and targeted areas? Again, push for it, but if you don't have the will of council, it's not going to go through. So for myself, I think we can do better, and if you elect the right 7 people, we will do better. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Don McLean.
Yes, yes, it goes back to the fabric of the community, right? What we're trying to build and what we're trying to move forward, right? It goes rec center, housing, development, opening up lands, small business, supporting the chamber, Community Futures, right? And like some have said, why we haven't done it, right? That's what I'm hearing out at the door, knocking on the door. Why is the community moving forward? Right? We've been stuck in the mud for 15 years, and now they want to move forward. So this is what I bring to the table. I get in a room with a bunch of people, like-minded people, and we compromise and we move the ideas forward. And we set a path forward and we solve we get some solutions, we solve some problems, right? We just don't keep saying no, and we just don't cut funding, and we just don't turn our back on the community, right? We move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Lila Moselle.
Thank you. So I'll speak on economic development a little differently in our great potential for tourism and increasing our tourism economy. I'd like to see increased professional tourism, day trip tourism, and medical tourism. Hinton is spectacular, we all know that. Unfortunately, a lot of people see it as a stop on the way to Jasper. Hinton needs to lean into the things that make us different than our national park neighbor. Quadding, dirt biking, hunting, professional organizations for those activities should be lobbied to hold their events and conferences here in Hinton. Professional tourism. Regarding day trip tourism, I was born and raised in Jasper, and we visited Hinton probably twice a month, like my whole life. I had no idea that Maxwell Lake existed until I moved here 8 years ago. And incidentally, it's one of the reasons we actually moved here. I'd like to see school field trips. From Jasper, Grand Cache, and Edson, to see the boardwalk, the bike park, the disc golf course. Field trips are great learning opportunities, obviously, for the kids, but of course, they're also a perfect way to inform our neighbors what we have to offer here in Hinton. A day trip to Hinton, accessible, fun family outing, great for our economy, and our surrounding communities need to know. Medical tourism is a long-term goal for me. It's no secret that our hospital's getting old. It's time to start advocating for an update. A great way to make the case is by first recruiting not only family doctors, which we've seen some success with, but specialists as well. If we can guide Hinton to become a hub for any number of specialty medical services, then we encourage medical tourism to our town, better healthcare for our residents, and then that hopefully can pay off tenfold with updated medical amenities.
Thanks, Lila. Natalie Charlton, last one on this question.
Thank you, Brad. Well, I would have to say that my experiences in my last job working at the Chamber of Commerce has given me the opportunity to see the benefits of economic development firsthand. Some of the initiatives that we worked on, like the Hinton First campaign, and just the developments of the destination marketing organization, these are all, economic development kind of has different levels, like it all kind of bleeds in together. I think as a vision for Hinton, if we want to attract more businesses to our community, we need to show the supports to the local businesses that we have here. There's lots of good work that's being done through organizations like Community Futures West Yellowhead and the Chamber of Commerce in collaboration with your municipality, and those supports can go a long way. It's important to keep investing into our community and having possibly open dialogue with local developers that we can actually see what is the market for Hinton and what do we really need, what type of housing do we need, and what sort of developments do we want to push forward. I fully support economic development and business supports for Hinton. I see huge value in it.
Thank you, Natalie. Next question from the floor. Mr. Riswold?
Sure. Thank you. First of all, I'd just like to say, I think we used to have a Hinton Proud, and a lot of people had license plates, etc., because they wanted to illustrate that they were from Hinton. To me, though, if you look at sustainable communities and governance, participation of the community is critical. Right now, in my opinion, there's a void.
Ross, can we get a question, please?
You'll get one.
I know, but we got a time crunch here, buddy.
Yes, sir. Bottom line then, what would you do to try to deliberately increase participation and utilizing the expertise that you have in this community?
Thank you, Ross. First to answer, Bill McDonald.
Oh, boy. I'm trying to understand the question.
Okay, I'll make it simpler. Participation is critical for the community. These people, you have a lot of people here wanting. So what would you deliberately do within council to ensure that participation and increased participation of the community is involved in making things happen?
Well, I think the first thing is listening to everybody out there, right? And not taking away options like Minute with Council. Okay, having more open houses that the council, okay, right, and the mayor can participate in and everything. You know, we have amazing facilities in this town that sit empty all the time and everything. And a lot, you know, we can attract more, okay, events and everything here too as well. But, you know, at the end of the day and everything, it is about all of us up here listening to you. And it's most importantly, okay, right, is when a question is fired at one of us about what's happening in the community, is we're not going to send you to administration or to Hinton Listens or something. Councilors should be getting the questions, okay, and then getting the answers and giving them back to you in person and then sharing them with the rest of the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Next up, Donald McLean.
Yes, thanks for the question. Well, I think we need the spirit back in our community. One way to get the spirit back in the community is whoever's elected on council, we all know someone or somebody that wants to sit on a committee or wants to work with us. And my philosophy is to get the people in the room, right? And once we start making some progress in housing or rec center or recreational facilities or infrastructure, right? Then we'll bring the pride back and people want to buy in, right? And there's no better way of moving forward and utilizing all the expertise we have in town, right? Is bring the spirit back, right? Show them that we're going to move forward. We're not going to sit idle. The quickest way to lose interest is we sit idle, right? So if we keep moving forward, keep bringing the like-minded people that want to resolve. We got to remember, it's going to be a compromise, whatever it is. It's developers and it's the town, and the developer comes in with an idea and the town says you have to do this, and it's too expensive or they don't want to do it, then let's get in the room, let's figure out what we can do, how we move projects forward. That will bring the spirit back in the community, by moving some projects forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. McLean. Kristen Chambers.
Well, thank you. This is not an easy one to answer, but I think the biggest thing is that people get engaged and they get involved when they think that their voice matters. And I don't think there's anything that a single councillor can do to move that ahead, but I think as a united council, to continue that communication. I know there's a lot of issues right now between the lack of different types of media. How are we engaging with people and meeting them where they're at? Is that through a committee? Is that through print media? Is that through social media? Is that through emails? Is it through open houses and engagement sessions? Whatever that looks like. But I think no matter how we're collecting data and how we're reaching people, it's getting back to them and saying, we heard you, we understand, we acted on this, and your opinion does matter. And continuing to foster that type of leadership where people feel like it's worth their time to come out and that they're being responded to and that they're being seen and they're being heard will go a long way, I believe, to really creating kind of that accountability for all of us as leaders, but also have people more engaged and feeling like their individual comments and feelings and opinions really are heard, even if something doesn't necessarily go their way. As we all know, the votes, there's always somebody who's going to be unhappy, but as long as they feel like they've had an opportunity to be heard and that it's been considered, I feel that that would certainly go a long way in having more people be involved in some of these processes.
Thanks, Kristen. Natalie Charlton.
Oh, yeah, this is a tough one because, I mean, being a long-term resident of Hinton, I do remember the days of Derby days and getting out as a young child and really being involved in the community with your family and friends, and you know, how do you create that spirit again in the community? I guess, in my opinion, is to set the example. You know, what sort of citizen are you, and do you want to create that community spirit? Is it part of participating? Is it supporting different user groups and events that are going on? There's all kinds of great things that happen in Hinton, but do we really do our best to participate in them and show support? So I think for me it would be setting those examples and just taking pride in your community. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. Lila Moselle.
Thank you. So, encouraging participation. I'm struggling with the question a little bit because I see a lot of community participation here tonight and in general. Like many of our amenities are volunteer run entirely. It's remarkable. Local nonprofit groups, volunteer-led sports, recreation groups, they're like the driving force of Hinton. So if they can receive financial assistance from the town or like maintenance for the amenities, I'm talking, you know, make sure the ball diamonds don't have weeds and the disc golf course has what they need from the town. I guess that is what I would want council to be responsible for as far as encouraging participation. Thanks.
Thanks, Lila. Mr. Haas, Trevor.
Thank you. So I think, you know, when you look at the history, communications has always struggled in our community, but I believe, as a council, we tasked our CEO with at least 2-3 years of his performance evaluation task to improve our communication. And I think, you know, for overall, there's been a great deal of improvement. You know, but there's always room for improvement and continued engagement. I'm going to look at it just for myself, you know, going out to the events that are going on in our community and just experiencing what Hinton has to offer and connecting with the residents is and bringing that back to whether it's administration, whether it's to council in our conversations. Myself as a councillor, that's how I look at communication, being available, engaging, easy to approach, and again, being interested in what our community has, from, you know, whether it's pulling trucks in the parking lot yesterday and, you know, even though Edson won, but, sorry guys, you did your best, but, you know, from getting involved in volunteering at other events, that's when you get the engagement and you hear from the public, you know, and bring that to the table. So that's how I approach this, and of course administratively and of course as an organization we can always improve. Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. Gail Dunn.
Thanks, Ross, for this question. I believe people participate when they are engaged. And I find that on Facebook especially, there's negative comments about Hinton. And when people hear those comments, I believe in comparing this maybe to a business, but it brings morale down. And I feel sometimes that's what happens in our community, is the morale is down. And part of that is not having the proper communication. So I think it goes back to communication again, like we're talking about, is if people have all the facts and they understand what's going on, even what's happening in Hinton, if there's some place that everything is advertised, then I think we will get increased participation. I was at the Oktoberfest the other night, and I was really surprised and impressed to see how many young people there were there. I was expecting it to be a little bit of an older crowd, but it was a lot of young people, and it just made me think, are we really catering to all the ages in Hinton? And maybe we need to look at that, is to focus on what we're providing to Hintonites based on ages of what people are interested in. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Ryan Magoon.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Ross. You know, in listening to your question, I think what you focused on first was a focus on pride. And for myself, I think there's two connections there. The first is when we look at events. And we have some bang-up events to celebrate in this town. You know, we have Wild Mountain Music Festival. We have things like Oktoberfest. With the other hat on, we're trying to do some new things. Again, you know, lead by example. We held our first ever tailgate for our Wolfpack football before their game the other day. trying to get community members to come in, do a little barbecue, watch some football. Those are those big things that as council, what can we do is make it easier for those things to happen and lend the strategic advice from administration to help those events occur. Whether it be where do they go for funding sources, how do they get set up, how does administration help facilitate those sorts of things so that they become more regular and we're seeing more and more members of the community participate. That's thing one. Thing two though is tapping into people's passions. We have so many people that are engaged on so many different levels in the community. You know, I think about our working groups. You know, I'm going to shout out to Joanne. Joanne's not running, but you know, if you want to talk about beautification or kick it to the curb, she's your champion. So we need to tap into that, make sure those citizens have those opportunities to participate, because for them that's not work, that's just making their community better, and it starts with listening and finding out what people want to participate in. Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. Mike Story.
Thank you, Brett. Ross, to me, volunteerism is the heart of the growth in the community. One lady in the crowd asked me my opinion and if I'd ever heard of Communities in Bloom. Just so happened I told her that I worked in a community that joined Communities in Bloom, and it's a national program that municipalities all across the nation join. And it is a program of beautification for competing municipalities from province to province. You're judged by national judges that come into your town, and you're judged on 8 different criteria, from cleanliness to composting to recycling and 5 other types of cultures. In that 13 years I was in that municipality, we won national awards 7 times. You could not put a monetary value on the amount of pride that instilled in the community, just from that one simple little program. The effect on the town was minimal financially, with some support of buying some flowers and some composting bins and stuff. But what it created in the community, it had people competing against their neighbors to see who could have the best front yard and best backyard. It was an enormous program to run in the town, and we should maybe think of things like that for him. So, thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Mike. And finally, Dooley Nelson.
Thanks, Brad. I'm really excited tonight because I feel like there's been a lot of apathy in Hinton when it comes to government, and seeing this turnout means that people don't want it to be that way. Number one, we need to remember that you guys are electing Dooley or Mike or Lila. You're not electing Hinton Listens. You're not electing administrations, communication departments. We don't have constituency offices. We need to do a lot of that work to engage people and bring them in. It might be going for breakfast at A&W and getting a hard time from the old guys. You have to be willing to have tough conversations and good conversations. I can promise one thing, Lou's Garage with Ron back there for a couple hours, that's a tough conversation, but a really important conversation with people that I agree with on 20% of the things, but bring a huge amount of insight and teach me way more than anyone at administration can. That's our reach as council. It's reaching out to these people that, whether we agree with them or not, we need to do that work. And sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's easy. I think we also have to meet people where they are. So if people aren't at the coffee shop and they're on social media, we need to go there. We need to engage consistently. We need to ask questions. We need to be open. We need to understand that 95% of what people say on social media isn't negative. And we need to focus on that, not the odd thing that is. I look at the previous council. In the middle of COVID, we had a town hall at the Guild. You find a way to bring people in. We had council-led open houses that were just council and citizens, not the smokescreen of administration, and not a bunch of barriers between you and us, and I think that's the most important thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Dooley. Ross, when were you mayor?
I don't know.
1945.
400 years ago.
So yeah, like the mayor candidates, just take note when you show up decades after your term, if you're elected, to ask a question here, I won't be afraid to cut you off.
Yeah, but there's payout yet, Brad.
I know. Next question.
Housing has been mentioned by several of you. My question is, are you committed to ensuring that this housing is affordable? And by what mechanism would you achieve that if you were elected?
Thank you. I didn't catch a name.
Oh, sorry, I'm Emily.
Emily. Ryan Magoon, housing.
Thanks, Brad. Emily, thanks for your question. So am I willing to commit to making sure that future housing developments are affordable? Yeah, that's the easy answer. The question is how. And we'd spoken earlier about being aggressive in terms of creating incentives to go out and get the right developers to come in and build large-scale enough housing where it actually has an impact. The good news is, though, is that we have industry partners that I think have these same interests. So how are we going to tap into that? Understanding that what the town of Hinton isn't is a developer. That's not our business, and we don't know that best. Who does know it best? Developers. So we need to listen to them, ask them what they need to help facilitate that process from A to Z, where we can get those housing developments built so that they do retain their affordability. That also means engaging in triple P partnerships with the government and private developers to make those things happen as quickly as possible. But again, that means making sure that the will of council directs administration to facilitate that process from beginning to end. And if we're not willing to do that, nothing's going to happen. But again, it means being aggressive and doing things that are out of the box. Sending councillors, sending administration out to potential partners, looking at modular builds, potentially bringing them in to make these things happen quickly and efficiently. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Trevor Haas.
Thank you. That ever popular affordable, it's not easy nowadays. It's very hard to find what is affordable. But I think, when it comes to housing, one is, spending time at different conferences, hearing what other communities are doing and looking at different options for housing. Modular is one of the top of the list because one of the issues we have is, with housing is the means to get the products here, to build it, the staffing, everything that's involved. So looking at different options to what's available, excited about seeing, with the government bringing those in, modular homes in for, Jasper residents that were displaced, and seeing what that looks like, having the conversation that we're looking forward to, the Bhutan lands, looking at different housing options there for affordable. It's working too with grants, whether it's co-op housing, federal grants that are available to help develop those areas. So I think there's a lot of different options that we can look at. I think we have to be mindful of, that $600,000, $700,000 home that built is not necessarily affordable for everybody. So it's finding those different options, and I truly believe that there is some movement forward towards that. And I'm excited to see, what might come from apartment buildings is also another big one in our community. So focusing on that and the different ways in which we can bring that to our community. And I think there's a lot of different options out there that small communities are taking part in. So thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Haas. Gail Dunn.
Thank you, Emily. Yes, I would say I'm definitely committed to affordable housing, and as mentioned before, I realize Hinton doesn't develop housing, but I believe what Hinton needs is a strategic housing plan to really understand what it is that we do need. I believe younger families, if we're trying to attract younger families to come to Hinton, they need to have affordable housing. I would support, say, transitional housing for seniors, that senior who wants to sell their family home. They're not ready to move into Pine Valley, but they want a one-level, low-maintenance place to be so they can go out and spend the money in retirement. And I just don't believe we have that in town. I know people left Hinton because they just couldn't find that in town, and I would support that. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Mike Story.
Thanks for the question. To me, policy is the key. Council must set policies that create incentives for affordable housing. We've got to work with partnerships with our local developers to think that the large developers out of the Metro Edmonton area are going to come out here. It's just not feasible because their profit margin is far too much greater in the city than way out in Hinton. So we've got to create incentives by policy to create lots first and then housing. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Dooley Nelson.
Thanks for the question, Emily. Number one, we need more. We need affordable, but we also need something where if a doctor's looking at coming to Hinton, there's more than 3 houses. I'm sure the guy behind you would love there to be a few more houses to sell as well. I think it's also looking at what opportunities exist locally. 8 years ago, I sat with Harry and Donna at Happy Creek and talked about the ready-to-go 9-plex, and also learned there's $1 million that was held in trust by the provincial government that if Hinton didn't spend, we would lose. So, you know, when you start listening to people within your community, they probably understand better than we understand what opportunities there are, and it's great. There's another 9 units of affordable housing created at Happy Creek just from listening to our citizens and finding a way to make that happen. I've already had the discussion with a few people in this room about having a working group or a committee, whatever you want to call it, that brings together realtors, developers, chamber, maybe somebody like a help and council to figure out where the pinch points are and get the same people in the room, much like Don's talked about, get people in the room, figure out what needs to happen in order to move it forward. And I think once you have an idea what you need to move it forward, then let's work on the policy piece, because I feel like as council, us and administration developing policy without doing the kind of collaborative work first, we might miss the mark on it, which we've done a few times in the past. So the biggest thing, we just need more houses. Thank you.
Thanks, Dooley. Lila Moselle.
Thank you. Obviously, we need housing options for all income levels. Plans for more seniors housing is a great step in the right direction, since that frees up homes for willing buyers, but it doesn't address the lack of affordable rentals nor the lack of affordable and sustainably affordable homes for purchase for the future. So I'm a proponent of co-op or condo initiatives that include a limited resale amount in their sale agreements and bylaws. These options are flexible. They can be apartment buildings or tiny home communities or townhouses, and they can give regular folks the ability to afford to live here for years or like decades to come. Since housing is a national issue, I'd like to see Hinton utilize new government initiatives aimed at this issue specifically. As for affordable rentals, the short-term rental business, that's Airbnb, has taken a large portion of our rental units off the table. The town has capped the number of units, and I think that it might be worth decreasing that down. I do understand that short-term rentals are a source of extra income for homeowners, but longer-term rentals are also mortgage helpers. They're less labor-intensive, and they provide housing, and we desperately need that in Hinton.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Lila. William McDonald.
Well, short-term rentals needs to be addressed first. We have a lot of non-principal ownership going on out there, and I think hopefully the next council will look at that and everything. When it comes down to housing and everything, we need to put everybody in the same room, put the developers, our administration, and our real estate people together to come up with some solutions. You know, looking at green spaces that communities already have and trying to build on them is not the answer. Okay, that's what people moved there for in the first place, was those green spaces. And we need to be looking at the land that's being hoarded around us. And some of those owners who haven't built for many years, we need to be taxing them more money. Okay, and then finally, okay, right, the Evergreens Foundation has been building a retirement community very well in this town, and they're a key figure to addressing, you know, what we need to be doing for our seniors in retirement. And I think working with them is key as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Donald McLean.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the question. I see housing three-tiered, right? First is senior housing, we're transition, as was mentioned here before, where we have one level, barrier-free, right? Down in Bhutan, they're looking at that now, right? The only problem I have is watching, and I've been watching council and the regular council meetings and everything since the by-election. I was going to run the by-election, but I decided not to. But what I've noticed is some of the decisions, they talk one thing, but their actions are different this past council, right? So one of the comments was, it would only give us 20 or 30. Well, we don't have any. So 20 or 30 to start with would be great. and I could sell my house to a younger couple, I could transition there and then end up in Pine Valley. So we need to start that project and we need to follow through, right? Affordable housing, right? And, for low income, Happy Creek is a perfect example, right? We just rezoned some land right next to it, right? Where the recycling depot is there. Why wouldn't a row of townhouses just like at Happy Creek be a perfect opportunity for this? The problem is, again, right, this past council, right, when it comes to rezoning, and they rezone 2 parcels of land, now they're talking about 12 stages to put out to a realtor to come back to council. What is it? One of the things in there, developer wouldn't have to do anything for 5 years. I want to sit down with developers and say, hey, oh, I'm done.
I didn't even have to stop you, Don. Good boy. Kristen Chambers.
You might have to stop me.
Yeah.
Affordable housing is my life's work, and so I could talk a lot about that, but I think what I want to talk about is the stark realization that I had getting on council, looking at a bit of a land audit, and understanding the barriers to housing. We can talk about all these lands that are owned, and are they privately owned, are they owned by the town? The reality is they're not serviced, and that servicing costs a fortune. And it makes it cost prohibitive for a large amount of those landowners to put in any type of housing development that's affordable. So that was the biggest thing I think that hit me square in the face, was we can talk all we want about adding additional taxes, doing all these things, but what are we doing as a council to come up with an infrastructure plan long-term to get those services to the shoulders of our communities, so that east side, that west side, where we know we have land sitting there. It's not reasonable for a developer to be able to come in a lot of instances and develop that at a reasonable cost. So while we want to look at, certainly we can pivot, we have to be able to pivot to the government of the day and what their whims are. We need owned and zoned land, and those lands need to be serviced, and we have to determine as a council and as a community, are we willing to shoulder some of these infrastructure costs up front and do some incentives for the developers so that they're able to make these lands work? Because I believe if we were able to do that, the developers and the people owning those parcels of land would be coming to the table.
Thanks, Kristen. And finally, Natalie Charlton.
Well, thank you. And it's always tough to be the last person because there's a lot of good content that has been given. Am I committed to affordable housing? Absolutely. I mean, this is what we want to see for our community. But again, not only affordable housing, but multi-family housing, transitional senior housing. And yes, I mean, my family has a little bit of background in development as well. It's not an easy task to put in the infrastructure to develop these lands. So sometimes through off-site levies and maybe tax incentives, some of those things can go forward. But I think it would be working with developers to find out what is the actual market that we need for right now in our community, and how do we work with those developers to try to make some of that development go through. It is needed, but it has to be reasonable, and it has to be fiscally responsible to be able to offset that. Do I think that there could be tax incentives put in that would allow this? Yes, investing in land and housing developments means tax dollars back into your community, but it may not be right away. But we somehow need to move the needle on development.
Thank you, Natalie. That's 4 questions we're through. Colton, long-time listener, first-time caller.
I kind of got jumped on. I have a housing question as well, so there might be a little bit of repeats here, but I'll give you guys a little bit of leeway. My question to you is, what do you feel is the biggest hurdle Hinton is facing in housing? You're all talking housing. Is it cost? Is it developable land? Or is it lack of developers? And you brought SDRs into it, Bill and Lila, so if you want to talk on SDRs, you want to kill SDRs so there's more housing. How about we build some more housing, and because you want Hinton to grow? And you talk about putting money into development. If you build 100 home development at roughly $600,000 a house, that's $5 million million tax dollars a year.
Colton, I cut Ross off.
5 million a year, think about that.
Okay, first up, Bill McDonald.
That was a question?
Well,
I thought that was a statement,
and he left.
right?
Mic dropped.
Oh, the biggest hurdle,
Biggest
okay,
hurdle.
right, is, it's development, okay, right, working with the developers, I honestly, I hear all the time, okay, right, that administration is the issue. The developers are wanting to come in and build, okay, right, and they've got roadblocks in front of them all the time. And I think the best solution here is to put the real estate agents, the developers, administration in a room and find out what the real problem is. Right now, as far as it goes with short-term rentals, okay, I'll be in a strong voice with this one. If you are a principal owner in Hinton and you own your own house and you want to have a short-term rental and they're rented out, go for it. You should just pay a regular business license. Okay, now, if you are an international buyer coming in here and taking away housing, right, I have a problem with that because right now, we don't have enough houses on the market. We got more real estate agents out there right now than what we do for houses. Thank you.
We have to fact check that. Mike's story.
It seems to be a common theme in the housing issue. To me, the prime factor in any growth in a town is the lack of developed land. Council policy must be established that you can create incentives with partnerships to create subdivisions. Without those, nobody's got any place to build a house anyway, so you've got to start with the developer of the land. I've seen partnerships in the past where you partner on the infrastructure and then collect it back from the next subdivision, so the town recoups its cost every time there's a brand new subdivision. So I think the lack of developed land is the prime factor right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Story. Dooley, Nelson, you guys have been back to back every time.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest issue is the cost of servicing and the challenge of servicing.
Thanks, Dooley. Kristen Chambers.
Well, I think I spoke a little bit to the infrastructure part of it, but I would say if I had to sum up the hurdle in one word, it would be supply. And so we can look at affordable housing, we can talk about developers, we can talk about tax incentives, we can talk about all those things. Any of those items single-handedly is not going to make an impact. Affordable housing is a very small player in housing affordability in the community. And so we need, whether it goes back to Nancy's economic development comment, whatever that is, we need all of these different prongs of the housing field from the local developers, maybe the long-term apartment builders, the seniors housing, the affordable housing, the government programs, all of those things need to come together to create that renewed supply and that well-rounded stock of housing. That's what's going to make the difference within the community. It's not going to be one single thing that's going to drive it, but I would say supply would be the hurdle and the renewal of that.
Thank you, Kristen. Natalie Charlton.
For me, I feel the biggest hurdle would probably be just the infrastructure, road construction, those sorts of things are very expensive to put into developments. And I think communicating with developers as well. I mean, there is some land that developers own in Hinton, and I don't see housing built on them. So is it because that particular development has the wrong market of housing that is maybe what Hinton is needing? So to narrow down the search and find out maybe what is the priority of housing that we need next, and to make sure that we would have the right parcel of land to push something like that forward. And I think creating a long-term plan where Colton's example of offsetting taxes with what comes in when a development like that is finally built and sold, and regaining those monies in the community after the fact.
Thank you, Natalie. Mr. Magoon.
Thanks, Brad. Again, it's a good question. I think it comes down to starting with an understanding that we have to listen to our developers, both inside of town and outside of town, and understand what the hangups in the process are first. You know, in talking with some of our real estate agents and talking with some of our developers, you know, actually talking to the people who do this, you know, one of the hangups I've heard is off-site levies, and maybe being willing as a community to change or defer that process to make it more possible for their developers to do their business. Because here's a reality check for many of us. Developers in our community are not the monopoly guy twirling their mustaches with their little monocle, you know, trying to decide how to spend their mountains of money. That isn't really a thing. The problem is it's a very capital investive process to actually make development happen. And we have to create a procedure that makes that easy to do, again, from point A to point B. In terms of short-term rentals, I just want to address this. It's been online. We can't make it illegal for one group of people to do business in town and make it legal for another group, or make it legal for another group of people in town to do business. We actually asked that question previously. So again, look at the process, streamline, but talk to the people who are actually engaged in that business and try to make it more feasible for those things to happen quickly. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Mr. McLean.
Yes, okay, thanks for the question. When I went around knocking on doors, I've run into some developers, and they were saying that some of their projects were rejected by the town. And I politely asked why they were rejected, and they told us the town told them they had to do A, B, and C, and they weren't willing to do it. So they weren't really rejected. So getting back to what everybody else is saying, is to get everybody in the room, try to move things forward, right? So going back to what I said, we as a council have to be smarter, right? When we're making decisions. Because those 2 parcels of land, I'm going to get to finish my question, Brad, that we just rezoned, right? There is a rider in there, the developer that purchased it. When we give it to a real estate agent to sell for us, and I don't know why we're not selling it ourselves, right? But when we do give it to a real estate agent with the 5 provisions, or 12 provisions in there, then one of them is that they don't have to do anything for 5 years. So how is that helping housing and him, right? So we have to do a better job. We have to do an audit of the lands that are out there in the community. There's some up behind Council Lake that already have water, I believe, to those. So maybe we sit down with that developer and say, what can we do to speed that process up? Right? Thank you.
Don, stop by my office tomorrow. We'll talk about the value of a realtor. Trevor Haas.
Thank you. Yeah, the biggest hurdle I think is the land use bylaw hasn't been opened up for it'd be at least 8 years. It was previously passed before my time on council, and I think it's time to relook at that because of the cost prohibitive, you know, due to services and how we can work together with you know, those in town or outside of town. So it really boils down to, for me, is let's look at that land use bylaw. Is it rewarding and feasible anymore, or does it need to change? Because at the end of the day, that's what council is voted in to do, is bylaws and policies, and how can we make things easier for the development in our communities. You know, a big part of that is also the developable lands. I agree with Mr. McLean. Unfortunately, we did not even get the chance to discuss if we were to sell those lands, how long that development would need to happen. So I'm looking forward, hopefully, having the chance to have that conversation. The SDRs, you know, that's a piece of it, of course. But I agree, you know, there are certain things we can and cannot do. You know, when we start limiting who can own businesses in our communities, you know, what else are we then limiting, or are we, you know, picking and choosing who can own in our community or not? So I think there's a lot of different levels, but I'd like to start with the land use bylaw and get into that. So thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. Lila Wazell.
Thank you. The biggest hurdle for housing is, I don't know. I see the need, I have ideas. Clearly servicing lots and attracting developers is an issue. I think that there needs to be some momentum, make some things happen. As far as short-term rentals go, I don't know that that's the biggest hurdle to housing, but decreasing the cap by 10 adds 10 homes. Thank you.
Thanks, Lila. And Gail Dunn, last to speak on this question.
Thanks, Colton, for the question. I would agree with Bill. What I'm hearing is that it's the biggest hurdle is that developers are hitting roadblocks when they're going into town to achieve or get their permits. But I also understand the cost of infrastructure is also a big hurdle. I believe, I know Kristen was saying there's lots of pieces to this, but I do believe streamlining the process for developers will help. And I also believe it goes back to what I said before with having a strategic housing plan. I think we really need to understand what it is that we're working on in order to put all those pieces together. As far as the short-term rental, I'd just like to make a comment that I believe the whole process needs to be reviewed, how many permits are being handed out. I hear some people say that some of the places that are being used as Airbnbs or short-term rentals are not actually licensed. So I think there's some work that needs to be done around that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Next up.
Hi, my name is Sabrina Crespin. I'm a member of the Hinton Youth Advisory Council and a student at Harry College. My question is, what is your plan to engage the youth of Hinton in the more upcoming decisions?
Thank you. First to speak on youth engagement, Kristen Chambers.
Good question. And not one that I was considering for tonight at all. But I think that one of the most interesting things I think that I've learned on council in the past 2 years is how engaged the youth are, and seeing with the youth council and what the youth council's been able to achieve, that level of engagement, how you start to see some of those familiar faces on different boards, going to different events, hosting different things. You can see that that's building that fiber of the community, and it almost goes back to Mr. Riswold's point of how are you building engagement. And I think that engagement, if we're starting with our youth that feel like they're connected, they're part of the community, they're being seen, they're being heard, that goes a long way to building adults that will continue to be engaging within the community. So I think that it's a very critical piece. I think we have to meet the youth where they're at, not expect that we're going to have an open house at 4 o'clock with coffee and that everybody's going to rush out from school to come join us, but engage with youth in a way that's meeting with how you guys engage and how you see the world and what's convenient in your schedules, not early mornings and not on Saturdays, but you know, all of those things. And I'm not up much for the early mornings either, but I think that's really key. And I think continuing that, I do believe that the youth do have momentum right now. There's a fabulous group that's done amazing work. Councilor Stashik's done some great work. I know on the youth council as well, and will be missed there, I'm sure. But I think it's a good moving piece that's going to help to create that next level of engaged adults as we move forward.
Thanks, Kristen. Lila Moselle.
Thank you. My son's also on the Youth Advisory Council. Hi. I'm a big fan. It's excellent. And I mean, that's a great way for youth to be engaged in a political process, which is awesome. But engaging youth in the town, I am going to talk about employment. So youth employment particularly is a top objective for me. It's currently difficult for teens and young adults in Hinton to find jobs, part-time or full-time. So I would advocate for the creation of a youth employment program within the town of Hinton departments. So there are a large number and a variety of departments with many different varying job types within the town organization itself. So this would be a great opportunity for youth to see where their interests could lead them. Looks great on post-secondary education and for future careers as well, and engaging with the town and seeing how things work. There's existing youth employment programs available that would make this relatively easy to implement as well.
Thanks, Lila. Don McLean.
Yes, well, probably a lot of you guys know that I've coached high school basketball in Harry College for the last 20 plus years. So I feel that I know a number of them on the youth council, advisory council. Sterling, Gladys' son, coached him for a number of years. The biggest thing is listen, right? And is listen to the youth, right? They'll tell you what they need, they'll tell you what you want, and then make sure that you give them the resources that they can grow, right? And we have an amazing bunch of young citizens that want to get involved and active in the community. So it's up to us to give them the resources, to listen to them, and to foster them and mentor them, right? We have a lot of great people on council or in administration that can foster that and mentor the youth and move it forward.
Thanks, Don. Gail, done.
Thanks, Sabrina, for the question. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about the Youth Advisory Council. I guess what I can say is that I know there's a lot of opportunities out there for our youth to be engaged in mountain biking club or cross-country skiing, or at the rec center, the hockey, ringette. I think it's just important for youth to be involved in sports. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Dooley Nelson.
Thanks for the question, Sabrina. I think the Youth Advisory Council is another great example of the community bringing something forward. It was Madison Sharma and Joanne, myself, were on the original group. The youth in this community, and it's probably the same everywhere, are incredible. I'm lucky enough to employ 6, 7 high school students, and you just see where they are at 17, 16, 18 years old. They're way ahead of where I was. They're smart, they're ambitious, they're engaged, they ask the best questions. Some people might find it to be a bit of a pain, but man, when you get these kids engaged, it is unreal. I also have the luxury of being pretty involved with my kids, but also coaching hockey, ringette, baseball, volleyball this year for a short time before the strike. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think engaging with our youth, I don't think we keep them. I think the great youth leave because they go to post-secondary, but how do we get them back? How do we create an environment that they love when they're 17, 18, in a place when they have kids, they say, well, there's nowhere else I'm going to raise my kids than Hinton. So thank you.
Thanks, Dooley. Natalie Charlton.
Yeah, thanks very much for the question. And I do think that the Youth Advisory Council is a great program because I love seeing our younger people getting involved in politics and learning a little bit more about policy and procedures. Other programs in Hinton that have been successful over the years were the Junior Achievement Program, which was allowing some of our youth to get involved in business. What I would really like to see is a mentorship program. We've had a lot of long-term business people in Hinton that I think have a lot of knowledge to share, and I think it would be great if we could share that with the youth. I've been able to experience that firsthand with my own daughter, and when I owned the old Rhine, I had many young people that worked with us. And mentorship to our youth is important if you're willing to take the time and share the knowledge. Lots of these times, kids are very interested in knowing about that, and there's so much knowledge to be shared. I'd love to see some sort of a mentorship program. And not only that, I think it would be very great for succession for businesses in Hinton to have that youth coming up and taking those businesses over, because there's nothing worse than losing a business in your community.
Thank you, Natalie. Mike Story.
Thanks for that good question, Sabrina. I don't know much about the Youth Council, but I would ask that the newly elected council engage the youth to hear their concerns on issues surrounding the town of Hinton, right? Like Bill said, we have to, or Don said, we have to listen, but most of us of adult age could probably learn from the youth just as much. So I would truly support the youth council. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Ryan Magoon.
Thanks for the question. It's an important one. I hope that the principal might have a little advantage in being able to answer that. But you know, the thing is, I'll start by talking about things I've done and things that I think are important. And the first thing is, I think it's important to acknowledge that I think often people underestimate our youth, right? And often what they'll do, more often than not, is there's a difference between, oh, I'll listen to the youth, but are you actually hearing the youth? And there's a difference. There are a ton of really good ideas that come out of our youth, and are you willing to act on them? So things that I've done in the past, again, I'll put on the other hat for a second. We also have a superintendent's youth council in town put on by our school division. In that case, the way they left off last year with, there was some recommendations around cell phones and technology in the classroom. That question easily coming into this year could have just been pushed off to the side. I brought it to one of our assistant superintendents to say, look, I want to give some validity to these students and let them know that their work is being answered because there's a difference between listening and there's a difference between hearing. So that's important. So I think moving forward, we want to make sure we're not patronizing our youth, but we're giving them genuine active opportunities through the youth council to be involved because they know what's going on. And so that you have my guarantee that's the way it'll be. And if you ever want to bend my ear, you know where to find me. So.
Thanks, Ryan. Trevor Haas.
Thank you. Youth Advisory Council has been a very exciting group. It came back, on my first term, as Mr. Nelson said, it came to us, and then we made it into a committee, including 2 councilors, and the growth that we've seen in that. I was happy to be part of that group for a couple of years, and I like the fact we went from the group went from learning about being in that council position and arguing to now also inputting into our council meetings. It was, and I don't want to toot my horn, but it was, I wanted to give us your feedback on certain projects. The silhouettes were all decided on by the Youth Advisory Council. They looked at the difference in the slide at the swimming pool. They looked at naming our different equipment. I want to see that continue with the Youth Advisory, but also with some of the more harder hitting, elements of our community and hear from our Youth Advisory and have them debate, what they think. They have some really great debates too on, I saw something about bringing back, this last one, bringing back extinct animals, and they've had the difference between ketchup and mustard or something like that. They've been a fantastic group. They've grown so much, and it's a great financial opportunity for a lot of that are coming because they do get a bursary for that, for their years that are the terms that they're on there. So I just want to keep seeing that happen and give them more to give back to council their insight on some of these projects. So thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. And the last to speak, Bill McDonald.
That's the second time I've been left.
Yeah. It's random.
Okay, I've been involved with minor soccer and Friday night skate programs in Hinton here for 20 years and everything. And the most important thing I have seen we've implemented in there was bringing youth mentorship in. Having the kids out there, the older kids mentor or younger kids, they did incredible things in our community and everything. And I commend those kids out there for doing it, and we need more of you out there doing the same thing. Now, youth engagement, okay, right, it starts in the schools, and it's at home as well. We need to get our kids out there, engaged with what's happening in the community, engaged with the elections. We don't have many young folks coming out and vote. We've had 2 open houses already, which we put on at the Hinton Center, and the majority of the people I have seen in there are 45 plus. We need to get the youth out involved with what's happening in town as well. And having council engage, and open houses at the schools as well, I think would be a good start as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, so I think, is that 3 people there who have questions in line? 1, 2, 3? No? You do? So we're going to run out of time, is I think what's going to happen here.
That's a quick question.
Okay, what's the order over there?
I don't know who was first. I don't know.
You were.
I was.
Yeah, I think that's how I had it. Camille and then Brad, and then
Did I run it?
Mr. Allen, you'll be third. The line was going down the line there. Okay, so council candidates, we'd like to get through all three, but that's basically on you. Next question, go ahead, Camille.
So my question's in regards to policing in our community. The RCMP play a significant role in keeping our community safe. In the past, council has voted to freeze positions at our local detachment. I'd like to know what your position and views are on funding RCMP positions to ensure adequate safety, as well adequate staffing, as well as community safety.
Thanks, Camille. Gail, done.
Thanks for the question, Camille. I guess my quick answer would be to understand why the freezing happens. Sometimes I believe positions are frozen because maybe they're vacant, and instead of replacing the person, they will freeze them. I would really have to know more information before answering that question, because I think the simple answer for me would be to say, I don't believe in freezing any positions, but I believe there's a reason why people are doing that, so I'd have to know that reason.
Thanks, Gail. Don McLean.
Yes, as Gail said, don't want to freeze any positions. I have to rely on the expertise. I think our new hire, Chris Murphy, in Protective Services, I think is what it's called, will be a huge asset to this community. And he's ex-RCMP sergeant, and I think that was one of the good moves from the town to hire him. And if we need them and they're designated for this community, then I say we need to look at pushing the detachment to fill those positions.
Thanks, Don. Ryan Magoon.
Thanks, Camille, thanks for the question. I think it's important. Just in short, I voted to get those positions back. I think it's important to have those positions in the community. And I think the RCMP have been doing a lot of really good work in trying to keep the community safe, but they can only do with the resources that they're given. And I think that's important to acknowledge that we're a key player in that. I think the other side of that also is provincial advocacy. There's a whole bunch of talk provincially about trying to get rid of the RCMP and moving into individual police forces. Myself, Trevor, I remember we sat in on a phone call with the municipalities of Alberta, where very clearly you had hundreds of municipalities telling the provincial government, no, this is not a priority, please don't do this. And we had a minister sit virtually in front of us and say, that's very nice, we're going to do this anyway. Okay, well, we have an advocacy role there. I'm sorry, we don't have the economy of scale that the federal government does to provide those services. It's established, it's in place. You want to start from scratch? That's ridiculous. It's a bad business model, and it does an injustice to those people who've been putting their lives on the line to protect our communities for the past however many years. No, I am sorry, I don't support that, and I'm pretty passionate about that. That's been a committee of mine for just about the entire time I've been a councillor. I've loved working with our staff sergeants because they always put the safety of the community first. And so I hope that's a role I can continue to play moving forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. Mike Story.
Well, I know that policing issues are a hot topic around the province right now. It's mandated by the province in regards to the number of members you can have through the provincial funding. The reason why they're limiting so many is unknown. Could be lack of, the members coming out of people and not enough manpower all around the province, but I too would support the RCMP in our local jurisdiction, and I don't think the provincial police force is the way to go. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Trevor Haas.
Thank you. Really appreciate the question. First off, I got to say, I was against the freezing right from the get-go. I don't think that's the right steps, and it was I believe a knee-jerk reaction to the federal government and the increase in salary that hit us hard, yes, but it's an essential part of our community. I brought forward to unfreeze that one, and I'm hoping to unfreeze the second one as well. I also would like to see, talking to our new fire chief, that our two peace officers, have like 1,400 files. That is way too many for two people. I think we really need to look at services. that also will free up the police doing their job and not, things that protective services can do, giving the RCMP more time to focus on, other crimes in our community in other ways. So I grew up wanting to be a police officer, and I still at heart want to be one, and I think it's an essential part of our community that it's worth the cost of it. So, even looking at, we've got, new things happening in our community in other regards, that may need more policing, and maybe we need to start advocating for that as well. So, thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. Lila Moselle.
Thank you. I don't know any details about the freezing of those positions, so all I can say is that I appreciate and the RCMP, our members here in Hinton, so important for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Lila. Kristen Chambers.
Thank you. I think what I seen when we were going through the information, I had a presentation from the staff sergeant about unfreezing the positions, was I think it was very clear how difficult it made the operations of the police detachment here while you were struggling to cover leaves, maternity leaves, sick leaves, all of those things, being down those two positions when you really factor in the struggles with recruitment. Not having those positions there for a bit of that buffer, you really were never working at that full level anyways. And so I think that was one of the most stark things that I seen as we had that. So I think funding that full complement of staff certainly is better for the continuity of the detachment here in Hinton, for some of those objectives, for some of we saw statistics from other communities who had the full complement versus what we had for traffic fines and for different things like that. So even from a revenue generating standpoint from the community, I think it's critical that we have all of our staff there appropriately. I certainly would support unfreezing that position in the future as well if I'm elected.
Thanks, Kristen. Natalie Charlton.
Yeah, Camille, thanks for the question. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of knowledge about the freezing of the position. It was something I would have to get up to speed on, but I would like to say that safety is definitely the most important for our community, and this definitely would be a priority for me to learn more.
Thanks, Natalie. Second last, Bill McDonald.
Yeah, I'm going to keep mine short and sweet. Bring back the positions and increase. It builds a safer community. Thank you.
Nice, thanks, Bill. And finally, Dooley Nelson.
Yeah, I think the freezing of positions speaks to the difficulty of making hard decisions by a council. The easiest thing is to freeze a position that's currently vacant versus saying, we need to save $200,000 with somewhere within the town of Hinton. And instead of saying, where it might be redundant, where can we reduce? What can we change to keep that? You just freeze where nobody currently is, and then recruitment just stops. I think at that time, property crime was okay. It was really bad. I think 4 years ago, that was the biggest topic here was property crime. A couple years later, it's a little bit quieter, it's not a big issue, so we freeze a couple positions, and now today, I think there's some really big issues, rec center, housing, but property crime is continuing to grow. You're hearing a lot more about stolen vehicles, a lot happening out in oil and gas and forestry roads, and there's lots happening. Fortunately, in Hinton, it's a lot of property crime and not as much violent crime, but all that happens when you reduce, then you have to add more later. We need to continue to be proactive with policing, not reactive to policing. We need to make harder decisions than that if we need to find money somewhere in the budget. Thank you.
Thanks, Dooley. Okay, Brad.
So, hi, I'm Brad Bancroft, and yeah, my question was kind of just stolen there, but with that in mind, I do want to talk about safety. Your guys' opening remarks, I'm pretty sure I only got one person up there used the word safety. It's pretty important. In the last 2 months, I've been confronted 3 times when I'm out on a walk by people that were either drunk or stoned, and it's extremely uncomfortable. Not there, the amount of dogs that are running loose or people walking their dogs that aren't on a leash. What are you guys going to do that's going to help myself and multiple other people start to feel safe in this community?
Thanks, Brad. First up, Natalie Charlton.
I haven't even got a question written down yet. Okay, Brad, great question. I mean, what are we going to do about safety to make our citizens feel good walking around in our community? I don't have a good hard answer for that. I really don't. I think there's so many more issues than just dogs running around and people involved in alcohol. I think we have a problem with homeless in our community, and I think that that is going to have to be addressed. I mean, to Camille's question about freezing RCMP positions and safety, you know, I think it's something that has to be reevaluated in our community as to where we're at now. Maybe it wasn't so much of a concern a couple of years ago, but it certainly is now, and I think it's going to have to be addressed, so, yeah.
Thanks, Natalie. Trevor Haas.
Thank you. Yeah, safety, I think a couple of things. One, of course, you know, recruitment for RCMP, freezing, making sure, because as we know, yeah, you know, RCMP, those positions fill. I think we were told that we had 19 positions when we had, and in 1 month we had 19. And that was the first time ever because of sick leaves or pregnancies and things, but keeping it at 19 so we have that opportunity. I'd like to see also protective services have different hours, having more, you know, maybe another protective services officer, so they're cruising around as well. You know, working with, you know, I am excited to the community policing committee has changed somewhat, so there will be opportunities for citizens to sit on that committee. And one of the tasks of that committee is to come up with a safety plan for our community. So getting that input from that committee, I think will greatly enhance potentially the safety in the community. So I encourage when the time comes that that committee is established, that citizens consider being part of it. You know, and working with different organizations, but most importantly, I think advocating too for our provincial partners to start stepping up to the plate in regards to their responsibilities, whether it's homelessness or drug addictions in all our communities, I think is really important. Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. Ryan Magoon.
Thanks, Brad. I think the first thing, Brad, I'm going to go for a second and expand the lens in terms of safety. There needs to be a continuing advocacy for identifying and pushing, respectfully, the provincial government on matters pertaining to health and the shortage of healthcare professionals in our community, because I think that is an important aspect of safety. Too many times we're seeing, and it's not their fault, but our local healthcare facilities saying that there's no doctors on staff, right? And you can talk to the iPad. That's not acceptable, that's not good enough. So continuing to push there. In terms of our vulnerable populations, working with organizations like HELP to help ensure that we're taking into account sort of a multifaceted approach when it comes to vulnerable populations like our homeless, like those who are suffering in extreme cold weather events. That's something we have done, but something we can't take our eye off the ball. Understanding as well is that homelessness, it's not a simple one-sided issue where the solution is, well, the RCMP will take care of it, or county law enforcement, they'll take care of it because it's just a law enforcement issue. It's not. It's a much more complicated issue, and if we have any kind of soul in us, it means that we're willing to sit down and look at the different kinds of approaches it's going to take to reduce and solve that problem. It's not easy, otherwise it would be solved already, but being committed to that process and working with our partners. You know what, and I think that's good. We'll leave there.
Thanks, Ryan. Gail Dunn.
Thanks, Brad. I do have a background in human resources and safety, and the one thing that the strongest message I can tell you is that we need to communicate, or I wouldn't say people, like addressing you, but we as people, we need to communicate the rules and enforce the rules. And I mean, I don't know how the drunk or person that you're meeting or whatever, but even with the dogs, I walk on the boardwalk a lot, and dogs running at me, it does bother me. So But I think it goes back to also with the enforcing, with the peace officers and the RCMP. We need to just communicate those rules out there and make sure people are following them. And we're not always responsible for doing that because we're not in that role. But we have groups of people who are in those roles, such as the peace officers. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Bill McDonald.
Brad, I've seen you on those walks. Okay, right, and I'm down in the Valley Shopping Center. Okay, and I've experienced this, some early mornings that I go in and everything. And I think this is aimed more towards homelessness and the issues that we have here in Hinton and what we need to do. Okay, we've got homelessness, we've got crime that's involved with it, we've got drug addiction that's involved with it too. And it can be put under the same blanket, I guess, but homelessness in Hinton is a community issue. It's not just a social one. And it drives a thoughtful, compassionate, coordinated response rather than a series of short-term fixes. Organizations such as HELP, Options, Hinton HIV have deep connections with people experiencing homelessness and those at risk. They've lived the experience, trust, and prove harm reduction strategies that complement the town's policy and planning capacity. Our approach must balance community safety with human compassion. That starts with acknowledging that out of sight is not out of problem. The idea of removing homelessness, over 70% of them who are residents of Hinton, okay, not only to isolate them from essential services, but the concept of creating shelter space in Hinton. Commercial or residential areas raise understandable concerns for business owners and residents. Yes, it's a problem, okay, right? And the council needs to address this. And I believe working with these associations is key.
Thanks, Bill. Julie Nelson.
Thanks. I'm going to keep it pretty short. Recently, Chris Murphy came on as the director of, I don't even know what the department's called, Community Services. So this is the first time in a long time that a director has been responsible for both protective services and community services. So we now have RCMP, bylaw, FCSS, all under one umbrella. And I believe that as council, we need to leverage the expertise and now the lack of silos between those. And we have somebody that has experience with enforcement, but comes with, I think, a level of compassion and understanding of that it's a system, not you put somebody in jail, they get back out again. And I think we have an opportunity to really leverage Chris's leadership. And I'm very excited to see what he brings. Thank you.
Thanks, Dooley. Mike Story.
To me, I'm a great advocate of Community Crime Watch. I've been in municipalities before that used it to patrol the streets in your neighborhoods at night. And you can deter a lot of petty crime on the streets. I found out that the town only budgets for 2 peace officers and only have 1 at the present time. To me, that isn't enough for a town this size, and I would advocate for more peace officers, not needing, for your instance, such as you stated, an RCMP officer, but at least a peace officer to patrol our streets more. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Lila Moselle.
Thank you. A quick note about safety for our recreation spaces like parks and playgrounds. They need care and maintenance to clean up, make sure they're safe for residents and children especially. But I will also speak about our vulnerable residents. I know people often associate encampments with increased crime, encountering dangerous items or people, and the possibility of campfires spreading. I think dismantling camps just to force the creation of new ones is a bit short-sighted and problematic. I think it's clear that Hinton needs a permanent shelter with transitional housing, but that, of course, is a long-term goal. That's a lot of planning, a lot of advocacy, a lot of funding. In the meantime, I would support a permanent encampment location with garbage removal, porta potties, safe fire pits, significantly reducing those worries that I just mentioned. Our current lack of affordable housing in Hinton is a factor, of course. I know there are others. I'm not an expert, so I would look to the leaders of local organizations like we've heard, like HELP, Hinton Employment and Learning Place, the Food Bank, and also our unhoused neighbors for ideas and initiatives. helping to meet people's needs, food, shelter, resources, that's where we start.
Thanks, Lila. Kristen Chambers.
I think I'll answer this from the acute safety needs of in the moment on that walk. I know just Pine Valley Lodge alone, what's happened there in incident reports is astounding this last year. So I completely understand with your concerns, but I think a lot of it is even understanding who's accountable for what. Who do you call when you come across somebody that's in distress from a drug or alcohol issue? Who do you call if you come across somebody that's trespassing, causing a disturbance, vandalizing? When do you call bylaw? When do you call RCMP? And figuring out and putting out there to the community, who do you call, when do you call them, and then holding those orders of law enforcement or those outreach groups or different things accountable to trying to meet those needs within the community. And does there need to be strategies? Yes, there needs to be, a lot of those things. They're not simple solutions, and they're very complicated and very political on many fronts. But I think from the short term is just really understanding, are we funding this properly so we have people that can respond in short periods of time to that call when you're out on that trail or someone walks into whatever that area is, because it's certainly becoming more and more of an issue. We hear it more, and I think we have to try to get ahead of it and at least allow people to understand who they should call and why in those certain circumstances and who's responsible.
Thanks, Kristen. And finally, Don McLean.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question, Brad. Like Bill said, Julie said, it's a very complicated issue, right? And I'm not going to pretend that I know anything about why people end up homeless, right? But I will guarantee that I will review the hours of work for peace officers. I will look at their schedules. We'll look at working with help and getting the education from the agencies. But like Ryan said, I believe, we can't let the provincial government off the hook for what they are responsible for. And we have to put an advocate group together and lobby the government for a shelter here or whatever that takes. But I will educate myself, and if I'm elected, and try to work with the agencies and groups within the town and make sure that any resources that we're responsible for, that they get.
Thanks, Don. Okay, Mr. Steinman, I'm sorry. No, we're going to have to go into closing remarks. What I can offer you in consolation is the first question to the mayor candidates when they come up. That's all I got.
Okay.
Only offer. Sorry. Okay, it is closing remarks. You will each have a couple minutes, 2 minutes, and it starts with Kristen Chambers.
Thank you. So before I get into my closing remarks about me, I just wanted to make one quick point about recreation. And recreation in Hinton is not dead. We've been talking about a rec center, and I know that that's a big hot button item, but I think we need to take a minute to think. There's been a lot of things like the skate park, the climbing wall, disc golf, the Nordic Center, the bike park, the Beaver Boardwalk, Switzer Park, all these things. There's heaps of volunteers in the community that have expanded recreation in the community. So although we sit there and we talk about this lack of all these things we have with the rec center, I think it's important that we acknowledge recreation has grown in our community thanks to some volunteer groups. But I just thought I'd put that out there. The world of municipal politics is much larger and far more vast than I ever could have imagined. It's complex. There's competing priorities, and we can fix pretty much everything except we have to follow a budget. So that's always the hard thing: is what are those different pieces. One of the things that I learned in my last 2 years is that decisive leadership is the key to success. We're faced with many decisions on council, and they generally don't have a yes or no, and they certainly don't have an easy button. You're investigating solutions, and you're trying to stay informed. I'm a decisive leader, and I make decisions based on my values and not based on my feelings at the time. From raising small children in this town to my leadership within the housing field, I'm able to consider the broad and multiple angles of situations and how they'll impact different groups within the community. And although we didn't talk about it, we touched on it a little bit, one of the things that I've been hearing most at the doors is a lot of talk about advocacy to the different orders of government. And we have many things, whether it's the doctors, the police service, homelessness, the downloading of things to the municipal taxpayer. I'm very well aware of the positive effects of advocacy, what that means, And it was very clear in discussing things with the citizens that the citizens want a council that's advocating for them and really being their voice to push back on a lot of these issues from a provincial lens, as well as the things that we do municipally. So I appreciate very much everyone who came out tonight to ask questions and exercise their democratic rights. I'd like to thank everyone in advance for considering me to work with you as a public servant in the next 4 years ahead. So thank everyone so much.
Thanks, Kristen. Dewey Nelson.
Thanks. I'm going to go completely off script on this one. I'm just so impressed with the turnout. I'm also so impressed with the 10 people that are up here. You guys and the rest of Hinton have, of 10 people, 6 pretty damn sharp people that care about Hinton. I've been really impressed with every looking forward, right? There's lots that's happened over the last 4 years, and nobody up here has been dwelling on it. So I think Hinton has a great opportunity to bring in a council that's going to make decisions, that's going to lead the community. I'm asking for your vote. I bring a great mix of experience, but also freshness. I'll work my butt off. You guys all know that I'll communicate wherever that might be, whether it's social media or whether it's at the coffee shop. I'm always there and I'll do the work. But just be really proud of what we're starting tonight. And Lila talked really about momentum, and I think today is a great start to some momentum that we need for this community. So thank you.
Thanks, Dewey. Gail Dunn.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. Hinton has been my home for 45 years, and I'm deeply committed to the people and the future of our community. Throughout my career in volunteer work, I've learned the value of listening, taking action, and following through, qualities that I will bring to town council. If elected, I will work hard for the citizens of Hinton with integrity and humility. I will work to support our healthcare professionals, move forward on decisions about our rec center, encourage housing development, and ensure open and consistent communication between town council and residents. I just want to mention a little bit about the doctor shortage. We didn't really talk a lot about that this evening. There is a committee called, it's called ARC, it's the Attraction and Retention Committee that is dedicated to recruiting doctors in Hinton. But we have to set ourselves apart in order to recruit doctors. It is a competition amongst communities, and it also involves you as part of the community. When we do recruit doctors and they do come here maybe for a limited amount of time, it's imperative that the community welcome them as well and do what we can to encourage them to stay. I just wanted to make a point on that. I believe that with collaboration, transparency, and action, we can make Hinton a stronger, more vibrant community, and I would truly appreciate your support on Election Day. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Bill McDonald.
In closing, I urge each and every one of you to take the time to get out and vote. Change begins with us, and your voice matters. Now more than ever. We have an incredible opportunity in front of us with 10 dedicated candidates for council, each eager to listen and respond to your needs. I encourage you to reach out to them in person and ask them the questions. Your concerns are valid, and you deserve answers. Unlike many that may direct you to emails or websites, I promise to personally seek out the answers you need and share them with you directly. Together we can ensure that your questions and concerns are not only heard, but amplified within our community. Hinton, I hear you. There is nothing more I would love to do than represent you, okay, and your voice, to be your voice on council. Please take the time to vote. Let's make our community stronger together. Okay, thank you. And on October 16th, we're hosting another open house, and it's going to be at the Hinton Center where all the candidates are all invited once again, and you can all come down and answer them questions once again. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Mike Story.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank the Chamber, Tyler and Brad for facilitating this forum. Secondly, I want to thank you all in attendance for the interest you've shown in being involved in your local government. It's vitally important that you have enough information to provide, to have informed opinions on issues confronting the incoming council. I want to stress that I'm a team player and I will work diligently on your behalf to improve the quality of life for the vast majority of the residents of Hinton. Throughout my career, I have followed the philosophy of living within your means. and I will be the voice of reason and common sense if elected to serve. I sincerely hope that all residents will exercise their right to vote on October 20th, and I would appreciate consideration for your vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Ryan Magoon.
Thanks, Brad. First of all, I want to start by thanking all of the candidates up here tonight. It's a really great turnout of candidates, and I think you have some difficult choices. I'd also like to thank all of you for coming out this evening, especially those standing in the back for the last couple of hours. Thanks for being patient. Thanks for caring. For myself, I've always tried to be a councillor who's willing to stand up for our community members. Sometimes that means voting with council, sometimes it means being that dissenting voice when I don't think something's right. The thing that's important though for the council that's elected is to respect our citizens. That respect goes back and forth, but it's important to remember that there's too much polarization in politics right now. I think we can all see that. We turn on the news, we look at our neighbors in the south, we don't need that as a community. But what that means is we have to be willing to sit down and listen to those people who we don't agree with and have a reasonable conversation. And that's something I think is lacking a little bit. For myself, I've always been dedicated to that. As long as we're respectful, if we fall on two different sides of an issue, that's okay. That's fine. It's important to hear that, because if I hear enough of that, it probably tells me I should really be listening. I think it's important to have a council who's willing to do that, to hear your concerns and take that into account when they're making decisions, and not just plow ahead with, well, what I think is right because I was elected. I think that's poor leadership. We have to weigh our expertise against that of the citizens. I think that's number one. So for myself, I hope that I can count on your support on October 20th. I'm the kind of person where if you feel like you need to reach out, please do. 780-223-1701, give me a call. I'm happy to talk to you. Have a coffee, have a beer, whatever suits you. I just want to make sure I'm the best representative I can be for you. Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. Lila Moselle.
Thank you. Tonight has been great. I'm grateful for this process and for democracy. It's powerful to see so many people up on the stage willing to shape our local government. Choice and participation are what make our community strong. While I have a sense of who I work with well on council, I'm open to every possibility. I've collaborated with people of all personalities and perspectives, and I believe that effective communication is essential to getting things done. I don't like to see time or money or potential wasted. So that's kind of my mom's side coming through. Budgets